Hey, hello friends. Thank you for joining me today for Daily Art Adventure number 501. We are over the 500 mark. I remember when I started this process nearly 2 years ago, I thought 1,000 broadcasts. That will be an earmark. I hope what it earmarks is that I start making a lot of money. As it is right now, I'm simply entertaining myself and about 4 other people around the globe. But don't let that, undaunted, he continues, he proceeds forward. So I am doing, as maybe you can see, 40 by 60 inch painting of a garden. This has been a long process. This is a commission painting. Started talking to these people about 2 years ago. 2 years ago, not 4, 2. Just count one hand to the other, not both. Anyway, have done a number of sketches. In fact, my primary reference for this painting is that sketch, plus several. That's their dog, that's their swing, that's their gravel. They want butterflies, they want climbing, whatever those are, something, hostas, etc., etc. Those are their birdhouses. Those are not their butterflies, but they'll do. Okay, so lots of reference. And then in addition to that, every once in a while, I'll need to look up something on my phone, my other phone, my backup phone. So lots of reference, but this is what I'm looking at primarily. Okay. Let's get started. So lots of green. Ooh, scary, scary. But this is the sketch they approved. So as you know, if you regulars, there's lots of green in the upper left-hand corner and quite a bit down here. So that's easy. That means I'm going to do some red-orange underpainting. Sometimes when I'm doing particularly large paintings, I will use rags instead of brushes because often they seem faster. Well, they are faster. A brush won't make a mark that strongly. Does that make sense? Okay, that might be all the red. Now let's rinse out the brush. They're not brushes. Rinse out the rags real quickly. And the right-hand side of this painting over here, there's a lot of blue. So for that, I want some yellow and orange. For you newcomers, if you're paying attention, you're noticing that I'm saying the complementary. Now I need to be careful because I don't just want to paint a ridiculous hodgepodge of stuff. I want it to look nice. I want it to look like a nice abstract painting. Every time I do this, I think of how many abstract painters around the world over the last 150 years, 120 years, have painted things much worse than this and been paid tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars for them. Okay, lots of warm colors down here in the foreground. Therefore, I'm going to do cool colors. For some reason, with those blue marks, as you can see, I was in the mood to do curves. I'm going to dwell on this just for a few minutes here while I wash the acrylic paints off my fingers. And yes, I get paint all over my fingers. Therefore, I do not use any toxic pigments. Be careful to paint the sides of the canvas. That's kind of fun. I'm down to brushes now because I'm thinking I'll be making thinner marks. Now let me repeat myself. I am quite intent on making this an attractive abstract painting. That's really, really important to me. Now, of course, what makes an abstract painting attractive? It's pretty subjective, but not entirely. Anyway, I don't want to get into a long lecture about abstract paintings today. I'll do that another time. Now, if I were outside right now, I would get a great big brush full of splashy red paint, and I would do this. Well, there, I did it anyway, didn't I? Yeah, there, that's my abstract underpainting. I keep forgetting to do this. I especially want to take a picture of this step in the painting process. Okay, so hang on, come on camera. There we go. I'm going to take two pictures, one with this light on, one with it off. Now, if I remember, I actually like to take a picture at every step of the painting process, but we'll see if I remember. I usually forget to do that. Okay, today is one of those days where I'm certainly glad that I have some long-handled brushes. On a painting this size, you really do need long brushes. If you've ever seen me paint my 8 by 10 foot canvases, I have a number of brushes, handles actually, that are 4, 5, 6, 7 feet long. That's how you do big paintings. All right. Try to decide what color to start drawing with. Or colors. I very often, like this, put two colors, a different color on each brush. Now, I said this the other day. It seems like a good time to say it again. This could be somewhat intimidating, right? Commission painting, 40 by 60 inches. Here's what really helps get me over that hurdle is I've broken down my painting process into several distinct and separate stages. And I enjoy each individual stage. It's sort of like how do you eat an elephant, one bite at a time. So I don't have to, right now, I don't have to think about a whole bunch of stuff. All I have to think about is drawing. I'm going to wipe the paint off my self-portrait over here. Okay, so I have several pictures of the swing. Okay, I'm taking a look at that. I think I know what the swing looks like. Since the swing is the most anchored piece of architectural, straight line in the painting, I'm going to start. Nope, I think I'm going to change my mind. changing my mind again, moving it over to the left even a little bit further. And I don't want that arc, the arch, arc or arch? It is an arch, but it follows the shape of an arc. So it's both an arch. It's both an arc and an arch. I don't want it that archy. I don't want it that, so there we go. So again, I say this all the time. What do you do then with your erroneous marks? The answer is nothing. You leave them. Now, every once in a while, you do erase them if the subject matter is so complex, and this does happen, that you're afraid that when you come back to it, you may not be able to remember which is the correct line. In that case, then I do go ahead and erase the line, but it's just to avoid confusion. Otherwise, no, you just leave the mark right there because it will help create interest later in the painting process. So you don't worry about erasing those 8 marks. As you can see already, my technique is quite different, quite distinct from the traditional oil painting, like my daddy painted. You do a charcoal sketch initially and then begin to paint on top of that. This is quite contrast, quite opposite to that. You can already begin to see why I would suggest that you don't erase your erroneous marks. See, I have 1, 2, 3, 4 lines here. It's already creating, if I may, an attractive jitter. Now, where does that put my vanishing point? Man, I don't want to. I want to make sure that these first lines that I put down, you know, can I rest on them? Can I trust them? And of course I can't. Of course I don't trust them. But I want to, as much as possible, I want to get as close as I can. One of the things I feel like I did very well in this sketch is I kept the horizon low. And I fear I'm not getting it low enough. This line may need to come down a little bit more. Now, let me show you a trick. After you get so many lines going that you can't tell which one is the right one anymore, then it's a good idea to progress to a darker color. So I've just put purple. I didn't clean my brushes. I just dipped my brushes in purple. And now it's very easy for our eye to see, you know, which of these lines I intend to be the right one. One of the things I'm dealing with is that the orientation, the shape of this canvas is different from the shape of my sketch. And maybe I should have tweaked the sketch in Photoshop before I printed it out. But I didn't do that, at least not yet, so I'm going to try The way I'm showing this swing right now, I'm tilting it toward the viewer a little bit. Let me measure something here real quick. Yep, it's pretty close. Bring the back of the swing up that far. There, that's a better angle. I have a feeling that my client would be happy if I end up showing more of the swing in this painting than I did. They came back to me several times and said, well, we're not sure the swing's quite right, but they didn't tell me what was wrong with it. And nothing was wrong with my drawing. But I think they might have been not thrilled with the angle. So my guess is that they'll like this angle just a little bit more. In other words, we're looking into the swing, front of the swing, a little bit more than we are in the sketch. And again, I think that they'll like that. They seem quite particular. And again, I have a couple pictures here. They seem quite particular about the swing. It's a beautiful garden, by the way. When these people first, the woman of the household, contacted me, she said she wanted a painting of her garden, which sounds lovely. But when I actually went to their house and then saw their garden, I went, oh, okay, now I understand. It really is, I gotta admit, it is a spectacular garden. So that was fun. And I'm only showing a fraction of it. The hardest part was trying to decide which part of the garden to paint. It went on and on and on, trail through the woods, and around every corner was another visual treat. Well, let's leave the swing there for a bit and do some of the other drawing. And let's see if it hangs together. I think I've got the horizon right about here. In other words, it's a low view of the scene, as if the person was child height, or as if the person was holding a camera at about belly button level. There's a swing. There's a fence. Beautiful fence. Wrought iron fence going right through the middle here. I take that to be a very important element in the composition. I'm using the word composition there loosely. I should say that's an important psychological element and visual element, but it's too small to be a major light-dark element. I'm getting myself into a hole. I'm just going to leave it at that. That's just a nod to you regulars who perhaps follow me. Composition refers to major light and dark zones, primarily. Okay, now, Weeping Willow, very proud of, rightly so, of their beautiful weeping willow trees. That will be fun. I've painted a fair number of weeping willows in my day. I am a recognized authority on painting weeping willows. Oh, a couple comments here. Let me see what you guys are saying. Artist Ross. Hey, thank you, man. Love those first swoosh marks. Great colors. Gizmo Goose. Is the tube color on purpose or does not matter at the abstract bottom layer? Oh, good question. Yeah, no, the tube color doesn't matter. Like what color am I using? Although, because I'm dealing in abstracts, my red, you could use a red, I suppose, but my red is magenta, and my blue tends to be a cyan or phthalo blue. Orange and yellow, or just straight up orange and yellow. But yeah, good question. And one more comment here, Gizmo Goose. Does it not matter? Correct. It does not matter very much. Okay, and then next to the weeping willow is a ubiquitous in North Carolina yellow pine or longleaf pine. And I think my fence is a little bit high here. Let me redraw that a little lower. And then the next tree to the left is a coral bark Japanese maple. And I've got it breaking through the top of the canvas. And I feel like that's pretty important. I'm going to go ahead and make it with, so ironically, I'm doing some local color here because the branches on this tree are literally red. Go look it up. Coral bark Japanese maple. There. I don't know which of those lines will end up being branches, but some of them will. Now, let's come in here and do Pete the dog. Very important psychological focal point. Anytime you put a person or an animal in a landscape, in a scene, that person or the animal creates a very strong emotional pull, like a psychological focal point. Whether it's a visual focal point or not, you have to think very carefully about where you place things like that. Okay, so if this is the front corner of the swing, I'm going to heavy that. At least for now, I'm settling that that's where that goes. Yeah, let me step back. Let me step back from this canvas pretty far. So I'm 10, 15 feet away now. Yeah, I think that's okay. And if that's the, oops, hang on, just had an electrical unplug here. Let me fix that. Okay, so if that's the front corner, and that's the back corner, how many? 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Well, according to that, it's just 3 dividers. I think that's correct. I thought I had a better picture of the side, but okay, I'm going to call it 3. So that's easy because 1 is right in the middle. What I'm counting right now is the wooden grid. See, this is a wooden grid or lattice, if you will, upon which I think it's climbing hostas are climbing up both sides of this swing. Whoops. And the spacing of the horizontal ones, I'm going to base primarily on the fact that they create squares, that they're not rectangles, they're pretty close to squares. And I believe that's the case. All right, I can tweak them. Now, I'm drawing pretty carefully. I really am trying to get this more or less accurate, sort of the first time, if you will. But let me repeat my oft-stated warning to you students. You do not trust your initial lines. You can't put them down, then take a deep breath, say, whew, I'm done. No, no, no. You put them down, but you don't do the deep breaths, relaxing thing. Every time you redraw, if you will, all the images, all the things in your painting, you act like an editor and you evaluate, re-evaluate. You say, is that line really in the right place? And if not, then you move it. So even though I'm being pretty careful, I'm trying to get it accurate, in spite of that, I am not going to put my weight down on these marks, so to speak. I'm not going to count on them being correct. One, two, three, four, five, six. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oops. Go back to here. Okay. Close enough, I think. And then there's all these. This line right here doesn't exist at all. There's not a board, so to speak. There's not a board there. That's just a what's a perspective line? That's just a drawing construction line for me. This purple one there. That'll be covered up. Okay, let's do some lilies. There's a You know what? Lately, in my thinking, I'm always thinking about painting, of course. I think about other things too, but I'm always thinking about painting. I'm always thinking about how to teach it better, how to describe it better. And recently, I've been focusing in my thoughts on the word skill. Now, that might sound like, well, of course, what else would you think about? Well, let me define what I mean by that, because it's a word, it's a concept I have not focused on a great deal in my teaching, but that may change drastically because I think I need to talk about skill. So let me take a minute to describe to you what I mean by the word skill. Now, I was aided and abetted. I was helped in this regard 40 years ago when I was in grad school. I took a class about pedagogy, education, teaching. I wasn't very excited about it, but when I got into the class, it was spectacular. It's one of the best classes in my education I ever had. And one of the things that I took away from that class was that in education, there are 4 levels that you can teach at. There are 4 levels that you can learn as a human being. 4 levels of knowledge, I guess. Okay, they are starting at the shallowest. Skill, no, we're going to set that aside. Knowledge, understanding, and wisdom. Knowledge is knowing facts. Understanding is why the facts are facts. And wisdom is what to do with the truth. Knowledge, you can see that they get deeper, right? Knowledge, understanding, and wisdom. And then separate from those sort of is skill. When you're coaching Little League baseball and you have a gaggle of 7-year-old munchkins playing baseball, you're trying to teach them, of course, knowledge. Like that's first base, that's second, that's third. You have to run that way. That's knowledge. But most of what you're trying to teach is skill. No. You hold the bat this way, and you show the kid how to hold the bat. Skill has to do with moving your body. Are you with me? So people in general may talk about the skill of painting, but I haven't talked about the skill of painting. I've talked about knowledge and understanding. I focus on knowledge and understanding. But I'm coming to realize that a big part of what makes me a fairly good artist is skill. What does that mean? Skill is moving your body. It's like how to hold the bat. And I just want to make sure that there aren't any thick, wet spots still hiding out on this canvas. No, we're good. Everything's dry. Let me talk about some areas of artwork that are almost entirely based on skill. The one that comes to my mind more than any other is calligraphy. You have to get some knowledge. You don't really need understanding, like why did this particular font, why is it popular? You know, why, you don't need a lot of knowledge or understanding. With some knowledge, what you need is tons and tons and tons of skill. It's in the hand. All craftsmen use skill. My family and I were at Disney World last year, and we watched a glass blower. It's all this kind of stuff. That's skill. You understand? Skill. Well, it turns out to be a good painter, it's a good idea to actually have quite a bit of skill. Now, what I mean by that, though, is literal skill, literally the way you move your hand, because that is not something that I've typically focused on. I've just come to realize lately that, oh, that's really important. So anyway, I'll talk more about that later. That's as far as I want to go with that right now. So let's do some skillful painting right now, shall we? But the fact is, even with these marks that I'm putting down, like I'm often mystified by my students why I do this. I demonstrate for them, and then I want them to do what I did, and they don't often. Shh, if you're one of my students, please disregard that statement. I'm not talking about you, I'm sure. Well, what's the deal? The deal is skill. The deal is my hands, literally, I don't mean my brain, and I've tended, as a teacher, I've tended to focus on the mind, knowledge and understanding. I think I need to tweak that a little bit and incorporate a fair amount of skill talk into my teaching. Of course, the fact that I use two hands is a rather obvious, I think, a rather obvious skill advantage. And if you can't use two hands, then that's because you don't have that skill in your hands. Does that make sense? Okay. So, by the way, I didn't mention what I'm doing. Oh, and I wanted to take a picture. Should have done that earlier. I went from drawing to glazing without taking a picture. But I only did the green glazing, so let me take a break and take a couple pictures. Okay. Okay, more comments over here I see, and I've been missing a bunch. Hey, gang. Artist Ross, would love to see the actual garden myself. Great idea. I don't even know where those pictures are. I guess they're on my Google Images somewhere. I should go back and look. The fact is there's no scene in their garden that looks exactly like this. We've moved the swing, we've moved the birdhouses, I've moved the fence, I've moved the trees. Does that make sense? I do wish I had some photographs. Sorry about that. Good point. What else is... Alif is saying, hi, Dan, as an amateur drawer. Can you raise the camera so we can see the picture you're painting from? Oh, certainly. Good idea, David Mercer. my friend David picking on my humility and my overwhelming humility. Thanks, David. Few people recognize my innate humility like my friend David does. David, my fellow Canuck. Because there's the picture. It's a print off my printer upstairs that I have laminated. I've talked about that before. I've discovered owning a little simple laminating machine has turned into a great benefit for me. Okay, so I've finished with a bunch of green. Let me say an important principle. A few minutes ago, I was drawing with long-handled brushes, right? And what I mean by drawing is liney stuff, drawing lines. That's what I call drawing. Now, one of the dangers is that as soon as you put lines on your painting, most people are gravely tempted to then start coloring in the lines. So you can probably tell, like here's the sky up here, that I'm pretty careful to avoid that trap. If it looks like I'm not coloring in the lines, then you're seeing things aright. you're seeing accurately. It's like he's not coloring in the lines. Correct. I do remember very well when I was in college that it was very popular to rag on coloring books. Children should not have coloring books. That was a very popular mantra among my fellow students and professors. Ooh, bad, bad, bad. And I was I kept my mouth shut because I didn't want to admit to any of them that, dang, I'd done a lot of coloring books when I was a kid. I just kept that to myself. Yes, sirree. No point in embarrassing myself more than I already had embarrassed myself in many a multitude of ways. Anyway, but the impulse is, I agree. I have come to, I don't really think that getting coloring books as a kid actually did me any damage. But there is a danger or a tendency for everybody. Once you put, and this is one of the downsides of using charcoal under a painting. So once you put lines down, most people are tempted, may I say gravely tempted, to color in the lines. And that is not a good impulse. But I do think it's also pretty fair to say that it's an impulse that I pretty much resist. I wouldn't put that high on my list of problems that I have with painting. I have lots of other problems, but I don't think that's one of them. Accidentally coloring in the lines is not one of my weaknesses. Doing this sketch up here. Dave, did you teach perspective for 20 years? My goodness. I would like to know some of your tricks, my friend. I don't know, have you heard my spiel on perspective? Here it is. You please feel free to correct me, David, or anybody else. I have taught perspective off and on, not like you did, but off and on for 20 years. And here's how many, either a person kind of gets perspective or gets it, and man, they love it when I teach it because they get it. But the people that don't get it, like, man, I just don't get perspective. And then I describe it exquisitely, beautiful, carefully, slowly, patiently, wonderfully. Never, ever saw one light bulb come on. Not ever. Not one. Never did I see a person who, I don't get perspective, or I've tried and I really don't get it. Never, ever saw one light bulb come on. So several years ago, 3 or 4 or 5 years ago, I changed my strategy completely, because now I tell people, if you're one of those that doesn't get perspective, don't waste your time trying any more to get it. Instead, compensate. Learn how to be a good drawer using the clock face, an analog clock face, or using the handle of your brush or pencil, whatever you've got in your hand. Okay. Anyway, that is interesting, David. So I don't even try to convert the people who don't get it. I teach them how to cope and compensate. And I do know some artists who don't really, they kind of get linear perspective. But no, I think linear perspective is one of those things that if you say you kind of get it, you don't get it. There's some of us, I mean, I don't know, geometry, I loved it. Okay, I'm going to take a break right here. Canvas is completely covered. And the first basic drawing is done. I want that to dry for just a few minutes. I could go into white, but I want to take a quick break to change my dirty water. I'll be back, honestly, in 40 seconds, I think. Hang on. Are we back? Are we back? Are we there? There we go. All right, that wasn't too long. I think it was more than 40 seconds. Sorry about that. But it wasn't too long. I'm looking for some big brushes. I want to do some white. Here, by the way, this is the kind of paint I use. Lucas Studio, I mean, it's a student grade paint, but it's perfect for my purposes. I like liquid, I like fluid paint. I don't want it coming out. I used to use the stuff out of the tube. Just took a lot more work to get it thinned down. So this starts already at a consistency that's pretty useful for me. Okay. Sure, you can put it there. I just got a bowl of popcorn. I'm going to chew in your ear. Light, white. Painting things that are light. Not to be confused with painting things that are white, right? Anything that's light. I was going to say, I enjoy every single stage of my painting process. I'm a lucky man. Now there's some plants in here that I want to get a look at. Oh yeah, these things. Patriot Hosta. Hosta Patriot. There we go. They have white on each side of green leaf. And then there's some big hydrangeas. That's what it is. I was saying hosta earlier. I meant hydrangea. Do not come to me, for I am not a botanist, believe me. I'm drawing a post that has a birdhouse on it. So I moved it. It was over here. I moved over there, this, and so on. Now, happily, I did give quite a bit of thought to the composition proper, composition of this painting. And that is one of the big benefits of doing a sketch or a thumbnail sketch, is that's largely worked out. And it is quite simple. Shaft of light, triangle of light coming down, starting wide and coming down narrow, hitting part of the swing and just a little everywhere else, little bits and pieces of light, but mainly this big shaft or wedge would be a good word, a wedge of light coming in. So that's already worked out happily. How many of you know that doing a painting large is, I'm chuckling already. This is like, what's the word? Proverbial wisdom, like Confucius say kind of wisdom. Do you know what I mean? Confucius say, big painting, not same as little painting. Forgive me for that probably racist imitation, but it comes out of an innocent heart, I think, really, mostly anyway. Mostly innocent heart. I don't want to hear it. I don't want any flack from you. Anyway, proverbial wisdom. I think of my friends in our monthly painters forum, which I'm going to miss this month, by the way, which I hate. Man, I hate missing it. It's one of my favorite nights of the month, honestly. We've been doing it for over 10 years. Anyway, not infrequently, one of the members of our august group will do a painting small and then come back and try to do a large version of it. And we all admire the effort, but we also we're always reminded, big painting, not same as little painting. And I would say about 70 to 80% of the time, everybody likes the small painting better. Oh man, I hope to break that. I hope to buck that trend with right now with this painting. Of course, that's not an oil painting, so I'm not sure how much it counts, but. I'm actually erasing there a little bit. Unusual move. Because I want to try to remind myself that that's a birdhouse that goes there. A couple other things about this composition. I am employing classic, and I say it that way, it's like, it's so classic it could be cliche, so I hope it's not cliche, but the classic threshold, the foreground, the part of the scene closest to the viewer is in shadow. It's dark down here. It's like we step into the light. I will have a little bit of light down here in the path, but that's about it. See all the lights here, I mean, as far as the path goes. And then light is bouncing off everything. This is light bouncing. Just in case you wonder what bouncing light looks like, that's it right there. I hope you were there to see it. I go down a little further. Isn't this a crazy easel? You know, let me tell you something. You do not need a big old fancy like this to be a good painter. Okay, comments. David back. The upper curve of the swing is high on the wrong side. Thank you, David. Thank you. There are phases you go through that would stand as finished paintings on their own. I know. I know that. Okay, so David, let me. Thank you. I love it. The upper curve of the swing is high on the wrong side. I think you're right. It's supposed to be this side high, this side low, right? Because if this is an arc, so if it was a circle, if we were looking at it like this, and we turn it like this, it's going to be high here and low here. Am I right, David? I believe that's correct. I can't reach raw because I've got the wrong stuff on my brushes right now. Gonna go ahead and just get rid of that one line a little bit. Thank you, David. Thanks for looking over my shoulder, man. I love it. I have to put all kinds of signatures on my painting. This painting by David Nelson with help from, Dan Nelson with help from Toby, David, Bruno, many of my regulars. Man, I'm missing a few regulars. And now I'm drawing a blank. My friend lady in Texas and another one in British Columbia. Renee, you guys okay? We're worried about you. And again, remember, when you do this white layer, you're not zeroing in on things that are white. You're zeroing on anything that's light in value, not white. You'll be confused if you start limiting yourself to white stuff. No, it's anything that's light. So this whole sky. Now, I always think a beginner would look at me and say, well, you painted the blue sky blue, and then you painted it white. Why'd you cover it? Well, because I didn't cover it up, because you can actually still see. The two things. One is I'm leaving gaps between my brush strokes. But the other is that if we're really honest, one of the good and bad sides of acrylic paints is that they tend to dry more transparent than you put them down. So if they become, in this case, in the case of white, they become more translucent as it dries. You can see it like Elmer's glue, right? How old were you as a kid when you first discovered that white Elmer's glue that you see in the bottle is going to turn clear when it dries? Like, who'd have thought? Who invented this stuff? Well, white acrylic is has a little bit of that same property. So anyway, that's for the people who say, well, why are you doing white on top of your blue? Because the blue still shows through. There'll be several layers, of course, of that before the day's over, before the painting's over. I love this big brush. Okay, now way over here we have dogwoods, and I believe that in this way, before we do that, let's do the climbing hydrangea. Yeah, let's get some of the climbing hydrangeas hinted at. Okay, and then dogwood. Beautiful, beautiful dogwood. So I believe that this painting is not entirely accurate. I think it has things blooming at the same time that would not actually be blooming. And if I was a botanist, if I had half a botan in me, I would know. For one thing, dogwoods are early spring, and the blooms last such a short time. They're absolutely beautiful. Beautiful tree, beautiful flowering tree, but it doesn't last very long. So my guess is if those dogwoods were like that, these roses would not be like this. These are going to be big, orange, salmon-colored roses. They all have names, but I forget what they are. And then some other little white flowers down here. Hydrangeas here. And some tree trunk over here. Let's do another birdhouse post. Okay, and then some tree trunks over here. So now I have two kinds of tree trunks. White trunks and red trunks. That's going to work really well. Oh, and then there's black-eyed Susans. I know what black-eyed Susans are. And then behind them is purple something, I forget. Okay, let me step back. And just see if I've got a hint of a composition. All this needs to be quite a bit lighter. Let's do that. I'm going to do something a little bit unusual. I don't do this usually. Maybe 1 out of 4 paintings, or 1 out of 10, 1 out of 5. I do some opaque color. Normally in the acrylic stage, it's either transparent color or white, opaque white and transparent color. But every once in a while, like right now, I'm going to do some opaque orange. So I've mixed, because I want to do get these irises in. And I could do them in white and then come back and do them in orange. But I'm partly afraid that I don't know. I'm just taking a shortcut here, that's all. I was going to say I'm afraid I'll forget to put them in. That's not true. I've got a sketch right in front of me. So anyway, there. Hint of, and since I cheated that much, let's just cheat a little bit more. Isn't that the way it starts? A little cheating on that diet, a little cheating on that exercise, a little cheating here and there. Next thing you know, you're a cheat. Okay, yellow birdhouse, red birdhouse, and then a blue one and a red one. Okay, what am I going to do next? Well, right at the moment, actually, I'm going to do a hint of that blue birdhouse. And I sure want to make sure that they're not equally spaced, right? Since I've got some blue on my brushes, so let's go ahead and, just for fun, since it's here, let's do some blue stuff. All right, I'm going to take, again, a very short break. When I come back, yeah, it'll be pencil time. This is a really big painting for using pencils on, but I'm going to give it a try anyway. Okay, thanks for watching. Be back in just a few minutes to do pencils. Let me see if I missed a comment. Ah, thank you. David, yes, the type of bulb. I just bought another one the other day, and I wonder if I can find it over here in my light bulb drawer without unplugging the one I've got. It's one of these. It's like this. And I believe this one is a 55 Kelvin. I'm trying to see if this tells me. And it's a big one like this, not one of the small ones. I think it's 55. That's a very good question. And I didn't spend a lot of money. I just bought it at a ordinary store, hardware store, grocery store, something like that. Just paid attention. It's called a daylight bulb typically. And I think it's usually a good idea to paint in a daylight colored light. Okay, short break. I'll be back in a few minutes. Thanks for watching. Are we back? We're almost back. There we go. All right, thank you for joining me again. Now, to the pencils. They're called, made by Jerry's Art and Rama. If you can read that, Jumbo Jet Black. I'm also going to use some Conti Crayon. Made by Cretacolor. So I think it's a play on the words create a color. I'm not sure. Create a color. And I've got two browns there. And I'm going to try that a little bit. I've done it before. All right. Let's get going. So why do I use pencils? Partly because they help render, they help draw, they help achieve a degree of realism, right? That's pretty obvious. The other reason I use pencils, and the more IRIS, is because I like, in an abstract way, the interplay between the scratchy pencil lines and the smushy paint. Now I just have been Googling here, irises. Are those supposed to be irises? No, those are supposed to be daylilies. Uh-oh. I was painting the right thing, but calling them the wrong thing. Let's try daylilies. There we go. Whew. So I just want to refresh my memory. I'm drawing a lot of daylilies in my day. I want to make sure I'm drawing them right. So, hello, Charisse. Charisse is home. So as you can imagine, I need to have just a couple lilies that are fairly accurately rendered, and they're silhouetted basically against the bright gravel walkway. Most of the daylilies will be a little bit more abstract than that. Okay, so here we go. Turn your hand on daylily shape. That's what you do. This, by the way, is a good example of what I was talking about earlier of hand skill. Sort of like calligraphy. My hand, in a sense, can draw interesting shapes that are roughly daylily shape. And that is a skill. I sort of haven't recognized my own skill. That's part of what I'm saying here. I haven't recognized it. Oh, wait a minute. That didn't just come out of knowledge or understanding. That came out of practice. Skill comes out of practice. Knowledge can come out of book learning. You can get knowledge out of a book. You can get wisdom or understanding from a wise friend and from the hard knocks of life. But skill only comes from doing over and over and over again. And it's an aspect of my teaching that I think I've been underemphasizing over the years, not realizing, if you will, that that's one of the things that I am doing constantly in my artwork that I haven't been aware of as I could have been. Okay, now, black lab named Pete. Sitting down here. Triangle ear, short forehead, fairly long muzzle coming to a point, right? Curved breast, I guess I would call it. It's probably called something different on a dog. And tail down. All those things I would not have known if I hadn't done some research and printed out a picture of a dog. I'm thinking now, do I have those red painted lines. Is that where I want them? I'm not just blindly following where my earlier marks, making corrections and refinements. Yeah. Let me look at the picture of their swing again. Oh. There's a board that comes in like this. And the slats in the back of this swing go straight up and down. They don't fan out. Originally I thought they fanned out, but they don't. They're perfectly vertical. And the bottom of the swing is high in front, low in back, like a traditional swing, right? Like you'd want it to be if you want to sit in it. Your brain would tell you immediately if that was a comfortable swing or not. And some chains there. And then inside the swing are pavers, stone, square stones, or bricks. Square stones, otherwise known as bricks in most of history. Hey, Bubba, look, I found all these square stones. Those are called bricks. Now, this side of the swing has the climbing, hydrangea? Again, you do not want me naming plants. You know what's really bad? I don't even care that much. You haven't even shamed me into going into serious botanical studies. Ooh, ferns down here. So now my hand is making fern shapes. Does that make sense? And again, not that I'm going to color in the lines that I'm drawing here. Quite the contrary. But, okay, those two pencils are toast. I haven't forgotten my little Conte crayons that I'm going to switch to here in a minute. But I'm thinking I want to do most of the upfront and architectural stuff, straight lines with these pencils. Good enough. Now let's try these. I think they're called Conte crayons, and they're brown. I've actually tried them before, and for some reason found them not satisfactory, but maybe this is a different brand. I'm always trying different things. Say, maybe this will work. And how high? Yeah, this hostas go all the way up to there. And they're blue. These are blue hostas here. And climbing hostas, they're white boy, I've got a sneeze coming on, excuse me. Finger against nose. Maybe. Yeah, it usually means you've averted it for a little while. And it'll come back and get you when you're least expecting it. Okay, so again, the lines that I'm making here, I'm now conscious of the fact, oh, that's hand skill, that's digital muscle memory kind of skill that I'm employing right there. And I'm not bragging at all. I haven't been consciously aware of that. And in my teaching, that would be a weakness. I want to know what I'm doing when I teach so I can help my students figure out what they need to do to get better. I hope they're okay with those bird houses being brought that far forward. I think they will. I might be bringing them a little bit further forward even than they were in the sketch. But I think they look nice, that scale. In reality, they're not, these two things are not close to each other at all. And yes, I do wish that I had some good photographs of this garden. It surprised me. It quite took me by surprise. Did I just say the same stupid thing twice? Let's tell everybody it surprised you. And after you say that, then let's say it took me by surprise. That will really help people understand that you're an intelligent fella. You know how to say the same exact thing twice. Yeah, I'm liking this. I'm liking these things, whatever they are. Cretacolor. I don't like what they're called, frankly. They didn't ask me. I was not invited to the committee meeting. What should we call these things? Don't you think we ought to call out Dan Nelson? Heck no. Okay. Let's come down a little bit. This is what this easel is good for. Fancy easel goes up and down. Life is funny. I clearly remember years ago when I was an illustrator, looking at easels like this online, in catalogs that you get in the mail, and in the stores, and just kind of turning up a snobby nose and saying, those are ridiculous. Nobody needs an easel like that. And I was exactly right. Nobody does need an easel like this. But life is funny. I won't give you the details, but all my big easels were given to me. So I'm thankful for them. Thank you, David and Mikey and company. I sure enjoy them. But I don't want to give anybody the impression that you gotta have big fancy easels. You do not gotta have big fancy easels. They're nice. I think probably as much as anything else, it's a simple fatigue factor that, having an easel. Actually, my other big one I like slightly better. It's not electrified, but it's got counterweight, so you can raise it up and down with a finger. And I really like that. And it's faster than the motorized one. Okay, black-eyed Susans in here. And then blue, here's where the irises are. The blue irises are behind the black-eyed Susans. There we go. Yeah. And then, oh, butterflies. I don't have any butterflies yet. Here, let's indicate a few butterflies. A couple of really important ones here. And then some more far away, smaller ones. I'll forget, you know, I'll paint all over those. I'm not going to come up here and, where was that butterfly? I can't even find it now. I just drew it. There's one and there's one. There we go. I did a lot of photoshopping in my sketch. Not everything is drawn out. A lot of things are copied off the internet and pasted in that watercolor sketch. Yeah, this is what I was thinking I would do with these brown Conte crayons. You know, all that stuff there at the end, that was just pure abstract mayhem. I'm trying to decide what to do next. Either dark details in paint with brushes, or glazes, and then, no, I think I'm going to do dark details with brushes. Going back, I'm still in the long brush end of the process here. So a little bit more local color, you know, a little like this pine tree up here. Okay, to go up there and do some green, right? Pine trees, everybody knows pine trees are green. And all you artists know that's the very kind of thinking that will get you in trouble. You don't paint things because, you know, roses are red, violets are blue. That's not how artists think. Oh yeah, so my brushes are picking up the brown Conte crayon. And that's all right, I just have to not pretend that it's not happening, right? So it's got to be part of the creative process. But those small brushes won't do. Let's go back to these big ones. I was really enjoying that. These that I was doing with white. Let's do green stuff now. Green, yeah, and picking up a little bit of Conte crayon brown will be perfect. Okay, so this is Weeping Willow. More Weeping Willow. More Weeping Willow. Would you like me to keep on saying that? More Weeping Willow. Is there any comments here? Oh, yeah, there are some comments here. Kevin Lane, how do you keep the complexity of everything in perspective? Very good question. Let me try to answer that. I think I know what you're saying, especially when you're painting this large. I think my best question, Kevin, is that for me, the process, and if I don't know if you follow me often or not, or if you've ever followed me, I have, first of all, an unconventional approach. I didn't set out to be unconventional, it just turned out that way. But I have a formula, if you will, or a process, ABC 1, 2, 3. And every stage of the painting process is very abstract. Like if you could isolate, you know, like on a transparency, each layer, and if you looked at each layer by itself, each layer would be ridiculously abstract. Like that's a picture of nothing. That's a picture of nothing. That's a picture of nothing. That's what you'd say about every single layer. And I think this actually describes not just me and my approach, But I think it describes good painting. So, again, how do I keep my bearings, especially standing this close to everything? It's, I don't get lost in the weeds. That's an expression. Now, it happens to work more appropriately because I'm painting a garden, but it's not, I didn't mean that. I make sure that I'm operating with an abstract mind. I don't know if that makes sense. It helps a lot. I'm finding it's helping me a lot to have this sketch in front of me. It's unusual. Most of the time when I'm doing a painting, if I'm doing plein air painting, of course, I'm looking at the subject matter in front of me, the real life in front of me. Or if I'm painting from a photograph, of course, I'm looking at the photograph. So it's quite unusual for what I'm doing right now, which is looking at a sketch. But I'm finding it was a pretty careful sketch. Let me say that. It's watercolor. Have I showed it to you for a while? Yeah, creative process. There it is. Gizmo Goose. What a great name. Those of you who don't know, my wife and I have had our daughter, her husband, and their 4 kids living with us for the last year and a half. You regulars, of course, you've met all the kids. They have presented themselves often. And we're having a great time. It's a temporary situation, of course. The day they move out will be the saddest and the happiest day of our adult life. We will be thrilled and we will be heartbroken. We get along really, really, really well. A lot of people ask us, how do you do that? Look at you, clever person. Okay, I've got some dark dull green on my brushes, which I'm really liking quite a bit. I'm finding it goes in a lot of places. So I think the next thing I'm going to do after this, no, I just changed my, as soon as I said that sentence, I changed my mind. No, the next thing I'm going to do after this is glazes, colored glazes, which is big brushes, broad areas of color. And then my second layer of white highlights. And then I'll move on to oils. So moving right along. It's usually at about this point in the painting process that I get a feeling like, dang, this painting's not going to take as long as I thought. I am moving right along. And then bitter disappointment sets in a little while later. It's like, oh, I'm not moving along as fast as I thought I was. These early stages, as you can see, are quite fast. I'm painting very loose. I know you English majors get off my back. I'm painting loosely. It's an adverb, I know, but I don't want to confuse everybody with speaking properly. So let's mix up some dark brownish stuff to paint the dog. Don't paint him too carefully. Right? As I say to my students all the time, being careful not to be too careful. So there's a dog, right? You witness how I colored outside the lines a great deal. Okay, I'll raise the canvas up when I come back to that low part of the canvas. Yeah, I'm having fun. This is turning out okay so far. No major disasters, I think. That's always a good sign. No major disasters. No animals were harmed in the making of this painting. Well, I guess, you know, that's not true. Some pigs gave up their bristles for these brushes. Sorry about that, pigs. Well, somebody was going to eat them anyway, so we might as well use their bristles. Since I'm sorry, I'm driving all you vegans and you religious vegans, driving you all crazy. That's the last time I'm watching him. He uses dead pigs in his brushes. Some of you were probably happily artists until I told you, reminded you that there's violence in your brushes. Oh well. I wouldn't want to be doing this with any smaller brushes, that's for sure. I'd switch to bigger ones right now, except I don't want to take the time to rinse these out, so I'm just going to keep going. Quite dark over here. I want to get this part of the painting approaching its terminal darkness. The darkness that it's supposed to be in the end. It sounds kind of scary, doesn't it? Terminal darkness. Good grief. Are you happy with that? Let me. I'm going to step back about 15 feet, way over here by the front door. Yeah. That's working quite acceptably, I'd say. Definitely some dark stuff under the swing. Here, nice dark shadow. Let's add some definite green to that mix and indicate some ferns in here. When I think of ferns, I think of when I was in junior high and early high school up in the backwoods of northern Michigan, northern lower Michigan, for those of you who know Michigan. Lower Peninsula, northern part. Beautiful, beautiful wooded wilderness area. And me and my friend Don riding our bikes miles and miles and miles out into the country and parking our bikes by the side of the road and walking into the woods. And I've never seen woods like it since then. Tall, big mature pine trees, this big around, 80 feet tall. And the forest floor carpeted as far as the eye could see with ferns about a little bit more than waist deep. Just gorgeous. I mean, it looked like, even as a junior high kid, it took my breath away and said, it looks like fairy tale land. Really, really sweet memories. So I want this corner down here also to be mostly dark. Okay, comment. Gizmo Goose. I ran up a student debt of tens of thousands for classes that weren't nearly as good as this. Thank you, Gizmo. I appreciate that. I really do. Thank you very much. I'm sorry about the tens of thousands of debt. Lord bless you. Keep working. You'll work it off eventually. I didn't get any of this in college either. It took me literally decades to recover from my art degree. And every once in a while I feel bad about saying that. At the college that I will not tell you what college it was, it wouldn't take a lot of detective work on your part to figure it out. It was actually a very good school. But the art department was not very good, I've concluded. It was very, very, very typical. Very typical. And that's a shame. And I said, I sometimes feel bad about saying bad things about it. But one of the most persistent memories I have, and this is a little bit harsh. I mean, it's hard, sad. I don't mean harsh on my professors. It is that, but there was quite a bit of arrogance. The professors were in their, well, there was one young one in her 30s, but they were in their 40s and 50s and early 60s at the time. And I and my fellow students, of course, were a bunch of clueless, talented to varying degrees, art students. And one of the lingering impressions that I've had is that we were not treated with, at least I wasn't treated with a great deal of respect. I didn't want them to grovel and say, oh, you're wonderful. No. But I will tell you, now that I'm an adult, I see things differently. In the last couple of years, I'm not doing it now, but I've done classes where I've taught middle school and high school students, like every Sunday for 10 weeks or something. And not to pat myself in the back, but when I have even moderately talented students, let alone I've had some outrageously talented students, and I treat them like they're God themselves. I treat them with huge respect, because I'm thinking, it is my job to help these kids grow up to be better artists than I am. That is my job. And that was not the attitude that I absorbed in my college education. The professors considered themselves to be like God, and us as eternally damned to be mere mortals. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I've grown up to be more talented than all my professors. No big deal. No, at least that's what I think. And I'm right. No, I shouldn't say that. I should be more humble. I should pretend I'm more humble than that. I'm just telling the truth. And the point is, we should treat students with great respect, because they might, and if we're good teachers, they'll grow up to be better than us. And I didn't get much of that when I was in college. So, therefore, I do say bad things about my art department. In hopes that the next generation will do better. Okay, I'm standing here thinking, I'm going to take a very short break, let this dry, and then I'm going to come back and do just a few glazes, and then one more hit at white highlights, and then I switch to oil. Okay, what time is it getting to be? 9 o'clock. Yeah, I thought I'll be painting at least till 10, maybe 11 tonight. Okay, break time. Thanks for watching. Any other comments I missed? Hi, Marita. I know, well, the beginning stages seems really fast. Marita says you're very fast. It seems fast. We'll find out shortly. Instead of doing white highlights, I'm going to do some opaque color. Right at the moment, I'm mixing up a warm yellow to suggest these black-eyed Susans in here. All right, I had a little technical difficulties. I was painting for a while there, thinking I was broadcasting, and then discovered I wasn't. So that's all right. You've seen plenty. Anyway, so I did glazes using big brushes, again, these, and being very careful to cover zones, not to paint little bitty stuff, but to paint broad. Now that the glazes are done, I had said earlier that I was going to do white highlights next, but I've changed my mind. I'm actually going to do several bits of opaque color. It's really just a shortcut, and it's partly because it's a large painting that I want to take shortcuts. And it's not because I don't have the patience or the diligence to finish a large painting the hard way, but there is a trajectory. What's the word I'm looking for? There's an arc of energy when you're painting, when you're doing anything. There's an old expression, strike while the iron's hot. I think has to do with firing a flintlock musket or something. Not sure about that. But anyway, the expression, cook while the iron's hot, or iron while the iron's hot. What that expression means is quite obvious, and it applies to a lot of things. So I don't want to get too bogged down in this painting. Therefore, I'm doing this shortcut of opaque colors. I'll finish this stage by doing some white bits, but at the moment I'm doing various shades of green. There are ferns down here. My sketch is helping me quite a bit select exactly what color of green goes where. I'm happy to say I'm not sure it's perfectly anatomically accurate, my sketch, but it's close enough, and it's helping me create a variety of greens. All right, we all back? I think we are. Good, any comments? Gizmo Goose, I'm glad to see your comment, man. Because there are times when I'm broadcasting and it says nobody's watching. And I've often wondered about that. Is that really true? I mean, of course, I don't mean like my ego is I can certainly understand nobody watching. But anyway, thank you for answering the question. You were watching, and YouTube was saying it was nobody. Now you know what YouTube thinks of you, Gizmo. I'm being silly. Okay, I still have greenish stuff on these brushes. Okay, there is somewhere I want to go with this before I get too much further. I want to go back to my original vision as far as the composition of this painting goes. And that is this wedge of light, starting broad and coming down coming down here. It's not standing out as much as I would like right now. So let's take a few minutes and try to recapture that dynamic. I wish you guys could see this up close. You know, let me take a minute. Let's just move for a minute. I want you to be able to see some of this stuff, and I'm hoping the camera will focus. Again, not to see any kind of realism in this, but to see the beauty of abstraction. Like, look at the red glow there. That's not a literal interpretation. That's just purely abstract. Hey, Hanson Design Company. Thank you, man. I'm glad to have you on board. Appreciate that very much. Here's a part of the painting that turned out rather fetchingly. This just loose brushwork. All right, let's back up. I'm enjoying, and I know you can't see all of that detail, so I wanted to bring you in. Let's go back now to I want to capture this shaft of light, and there's a fence, a wrought iron fence, or a fake wrought iron fence. I don't know which, but you know, I'm not sure if is it called wrought iron if all the iron is pretty much straight? Is it still called wrought? Barely rotten, not very rotten iron fence, slightly rotten, wrought to a tiny degree fence. Anyway, and as you can see right there, I'm painting it at the moment. I'm painting it in the negative. That is to say, I'm not painting the fence. I'm painting what is not fence. I'm painting around it. And that is a general rule of painting. So it's one of those weird rules. So hang on to your hat. Here's the rule. Whenever possible, whenever you can manage, whenever you can manipulate things to make it happen, try as often as possible to paint things in the negative. Instead of painting the thing, the object, try to arrange to paint around, to define the object by painting around it. Okay? Now, why is that? Why is that? Again, we get a kick. This is part of the beauty of a well-rendered classic watercolor painting. Is in watercolor, you don't render the thing, you render around it very often. If it's light, right? Because you don't paint light paint. All the white in a traditional watercolor painting, all the white is paper, right? So anyway, the light objects in a watercolor painting are painted around. Anyway, our eyes get a kick out of that because we assume that artists are going to paint things, pictures of things. Are you with me? That's our normal assumption. So when the artist does not paint the thing, but in fact paints around it, it gives a little wiggle of surprise in our brain, and that's a pleasant sensation. I don't think I've described that very well, but I'm just going to let it go right now. Another factor, while we're talking about, what were we talking about? Oh yeah, this fence. The fence consists of the same mark, the same stroke, repeated 40 times across here. Okay, so if you want to be a better painter, pay attention to this statement. Anytime you have a highly repeated shape, motif, being a musician, I suppose maybe I gravitate toward the word motif. Bum, 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 that's a motif, repeated scores of times in Beethoven's Fifth. So a motif is a shape that's repeated, or a line, or an object, or color, or anyway, something that's repeated over and over and over. So as artists, you want to you don't want to be boring. You don't want to bore people. So you render things like a fence with 40 pickets. Every picket is essentially identical to every other picket. So you don't want to paint it that way. You want to paint it using a variety of techniques. At the moment, I essentially only have two techniques. Pencil lines. You can still see some of the pencil in here. And then negative painting. Now, I've got 4 or 5 more layers of oil to go on top of that. So by the time I'm finished, I will have rendered that fence probably in 6 different techniques, different mediums or different approaches. I'm going to continue emphasizing, outlining, delineating, all those words, this shaft of light that's coming from the upper left down toward the center of the painting. I want it to be, that is like the primary design element. And it's something that non-artists won't even notice, right? I've talked about that earlier today on another painting. We do these things not so that we don't expect non-artists to notice them at all. We do these things because we know they work. They'll have an effect on the viewer, but the viewer won't recognize what it is that is affecting him or her. Mixing on 2 brushes, as you can see. Very, very common practice of mine. Likewise, the branches in this tree in particular, all branches and all trees, but in this case, because the branches are red, so they really stand out. Oh, see, I want to render them in a number of techniques, including scratching. So I've rendered these branches so far by scratching pencil and by taking a brush and painting them with red, orange brushstrokes. And now I'm painting these branches by negative painting, reverse painting, not painting the branches, but painting in between them, thereby delineating and giving it the impression of branches. There. And my music seems to have stopped. Let me start that again. I actually have legal music playing in the background here. Paying for a subscription. We'll see. It's a trial period right now I'm in. I'm assuming that most of the time you guys can't even hear the music. That's fine. It's there to help me not get distracted. I'm going to stand back again, 15 feet or so from this painting, and let me go the other way. If nothing else, this painting should be a festival of green. It should just be an absolute cacophony of various colored greens. It's already well on the way to that, I would say. Now, in just a few minutes, I'll be going on to oils. How do you know when it's time to go on to oil? I answer that many times. Let me answer it again for you right here. It's time to move it. You're ready to move on to oil when the drawing is mostly correct, when the colors are mostly correct, close to correct, and when the values are close to correct. So I know that doesn't help you an awful lot because all of those are, judgment statements. But how do you know when it's time to move on? The answer is the drawing is mostly done, colors are close, and the values. And of those three, maybe the values, I don't know. I don't know. Of those three, the drawing, maybe that's the most important. And here again, once again, I'm rendering or drawing the grid in this swing, not by painting the grid, but by painting the spaces in between. Get it? Just in case you missed, it last time. I keep repeating things. I will keep repeating things over and over. Okay, enough of green for a while. I think I've got this shaft of light fairly well delineated. I'm going to keep using these large brushes. For large paintings, you want to use large brushes. It's all relative, right? These are large. For my 8 by 10 foot canvases, even those aren't large. I use paint rollers and all kinds of industrial size objects when I'm painting my really big paintings, 8 by 10 feet, which I do at festivals. In a sense, that's really my birthright. Over the last 20 years, I've gotten smaller and smaller as a painter. 20 years ago, the most common size painting I did was 8 by 10 feet. Then I went through a period where I was doing a lot of 36 by 48, 3 by 4 feet. Now I rarely do one of those. But I do enjoy it. And I'm enjoying this here quite a bit. Okay, these are irises. Let's try to remember what we're doing here. Trying to remember what kind of flower. Now, what are we doing here? Because I have a feeling my client is going to be very fussy about which flowers are indicated where. I am taking this, the acrylic stage of this painting further along than I often do. I often don't go to this degree of detail. That is not a surprise to me. When I'm doing large paintings, that tends to be the rule rather than the exception. I do take the acrylic phase further. Partly because it's so easy to make changes in acrylics. As soon as you get to oil, things get a little bit more complicated. You make different kinds of changes. Oil you can rub off and move around, which that's one of the main reasons I go to oil, is because I like the freedom of being able to rub the oil paints. Am I making sense? And change this shadow here to blue instead of whatever it is, pea green. I think that's all the blue I need. now orange-ish stuff. Yeah, smaller brushes. I'm going to small-ish brushes for the first time on this painting. And there are these big roses over here. And there are daylilies down here. Pardon me. I'm going to up, thumb up, thumb. If I can find it. Never mind. I certainly want the feel of sun dappling, speckling this swing, right? That's a major element in the painting. Is I want that to feel very, very warm. Again, a little bit unusual for me to be doing this much opaque color in acrylics. I normally do transparent color and opaque white. But for some reason, I'm just in the mood to do more detail, if you will. Let's go over here and visit these black-eyed Susans again. Oh yeah, and then the butterflies. This would be a good time to hint at some butterflies. My client was quite particular about the butterflies. Now, the lightest color that I've done so far, what I'm putting on the brushes right now, is essentially warm. Okay, comments. Let's go see what's happening. Hanson again, good to have you on board. Chill Frost, oh, what time is it? There, it is now 9:45 p.m. Where are you? Chill Frost? Art Taylor, I know you've told us 1,000 times what oil pencils to use. Okay, I will tell you that, Art Taylor, no problem. Oh, thank you, Gizmo. Saying nice things about me. I appreciate that. And okay, what kind of pencils? Here we go. Let me answer that. R. Taylor, I think it was. Can you see? Let me get this. Jerry's Artorama Jumbo Jet Black. Jumbo Jet Black. Let me find another one. Let's zoom in here and see if I can put you against a dark background. Maybe I can help you see it then. Okay, Jerry's Artorama is an art distributor. They manufacture this called Jumbo Jet Black. It's not as greasy as a grease pencil, but it's greasier than a Conti crayon. That's my description. Okay, now I am, and thank you. Someone was commenting about how I lift representational out of, thank you for noticing. I think that's a good description of my approach to painting, and not just mine, where each layer of the painting process is distinctly abstract. I'd say pronouncedly. Can I make up words? I do it all the time anyway. Definitely way abstract. But the cumulative effect is representational. Sun hitting the corner, I think, and I'm confirmed now, that would have to be, if you had to name for sure, the focal point of this painting. And I think that will make my client happy. It would be this right here, the sun dappled, the sun hitting that swing right there. Yep. A little bit more light down here now. Always being careful not to be too careful. Be careful not to be too careful. It's just about the best way I can put it. And now I am using almost white, just a very, very pale yellow, or warm white would be more accurate to the description of what I'm doing now. And you see the little, I don't know what to call it, temper tantrums. No, happy tantrums that my hands have, sort of without my permission. Very important. And again, that's a skill element that I've got to. Hang on here, gang. I'm gonna go get a new in-ear monitor. That one has died. I should have changed it at my last break. There we go. This is a new technology that is helping me a great deal. I've got a Bluetooth wireless, so I actually hear myself about 2.5 seconds after, but it's turned down, so it doesn't bother me. Surprisingly, it doesn't bother me hearing myself in my ear 2 seconds later. It almost helps me talk a little bit more carefully, I think, because I don't want to hear myself say really stupid things. Play of light. If you want something to look like it's really just exploding with light, like in this case, sun hitting it, then you paint loosely. I don't like what just happened right there, by the way. I don't like that blue that I pulled up there. Usually those mistakes I like, but that one I didn't. Hey, Hanson, I know you should try 2 hands, man. Everybody should try it. Rah, rah, rah. Go with 2 hands. I've told the story so many times, but Hanson, I think you're a newcomer, so I'll tell it again. I started using 2 hands I didn't write it down. I didn't realize it was going to become such a big deal, or I would have made a point to remember the date. It started fairly gradually, but why did it start? It started because I had an epiphany, a revelation, a moment of a flash of insight. A couple things happened. One is I read that Leonardo da Vinci painted with two hands, and it was just kind of like a duh moment. Duh. Is anybody paying attention here? Da Vinci painted with two hands. Is anybody paying attention? He was kind of a smart guy. So that was the first thing. The other thing was that I noticed that as we get older, so I'm 64 now, so I was, about 50, 1, 2, 3, something like that at the time that this started. And I was old enough to look at my older friends and see that as people age, they tend to lose parts. Arthritis, bursitis, stroke, stuff like that. And so I thought, well, it just makes good business to hedge your bets a little bit and say, well, if I lose one arm, I can still paint with the other one. That was it. Isn't that silly? Kind of funny. But that's what I thought. And so I started forcing myself to use my left hand. At first, I just forced my left hand. I was as non-ambidextrous as anybody you've ever seen. My left hand couldn't do anything. So I forced my left hand to clean the brushes, just to swish them in the water. My left hand didn't like doing that. I just said, shut up, clean the brushes. And then I started forcing my left hand to gesso the canvas, plain white, just gesso the canvas. My left hand didn't like doing that. It complained a lot, and I said, shut up, gesso the canvas. Then I started making my left hand do more and more and more and more stuff. It was a day-by-day battle for years, actually, 2 or 3 years. I don't remember. I just forced myself to do. Here's the funny part. Even though my left hand was like almost worthless, here's the ironic part, especially as I look back. My paintings improved instantly. Instantly. As soon as I started simply trying to use my left hand, let alone really using it, just trying to use it. So there's something to that. There's something to that other side of the brain business that I think is real and applies to us painters. So as soon as I started, even poorly, doing it poorly, as soon as I started trying to use my left hand, my paintings improved. I think it was probably about 3 years after I started using my left hand. I remember very well where I was painting in downtown Raleigh. I could take you to the spot today. It was a festival, and I was working on a 36 by 48 inch painting. Maybe even bigger, 30, maybe this big, roughly. And all of a sudden, I realized that I had been painting for some minutes with my left hand, and I didn't even notice. That was a breakthrough. It's like, oh my goodness. Now I really am ambidextrous, because my left hand can paint and I don't even have to fight with it anymore. Now, there are times, of course, when I'm doing hyperrealism, I tend to slip back into right hand only, but I try not to do it even then. There are times when I'm holding a phone and painting, and that it drives me crazy. Now, I was going to say that it drives me crazy to paint with one hand. It really does. I'm so weird now. I'll tell you how weird I am. That when I watch YouTube videos of other people painting and they're only using one hand, I'm screaming at them through the screen saying, what are you doing? You wounded or something? You got hurt in the war? I want to say, God gave you two hands. What are you doing with that one dangling uselessly by your side there? I know I'm exaggerating here, of course. But Except that it does, yeah, it really does drive me crazy to watch other people paint with one hand. Listen, okay, and I'm gonna drop it after this. I'm a musician, lots of you guys are musicians. Everybody watching me knows some musicians, or at least you've seen them on TV. Virtually every musician you know uses two hands. And nobody says, golly, did you see that piano player? He was using both hands. Are you with me? Enough said. Guitar, drums, even brass instruments, woodwinds for sure. Think about it. The only instrument I can think of, and I play this, and you actually do use two hands, but you don't need to, is harmonica. You could play harmonica with no hands, okay? Blues harp. But every other instrument you can even name, two hands. So I just feel like, artists, come on. What makes you think we got a pass? That's just where we all just let ourselves get lazy at some point. So let's hook it up, get it on. You have two hands, use them. There, okay, end of tirade. I promise not to go there again for a while. Some of you have never heard that tirade, so you needed to. That exhortation, go ahead, give it a try. I really do mean that. Now, I've come in here several times and lightened this area, but then when it dries, it gets slightly darker. I'm unhappy about that. Now I'm wondering, what would happen if I came in here with a pale blue? Because I've been doing, yeah, that's all right. I could almost finish the painting just like this, couldn't I? Not gonna though. It's going to get even better. But I am going to stop right here, take a break. When I come back, it's going to be part B, oil. And I'll start that tonight. Thanks for watching. Oh, wait, comment. Let me get that comment. Hanson, when I play piano, what do you think about it? Go for it, man. You're a piano player. You're innately ambidextrous. Go for it.